This one content strategy has driven millions of dollars of sales for my clients. It's called blockbuster content. So let me tell you a little bit about blockbuster content. Yesterday, I was on social media and a friend was talking about consistency and how he posted consistently and had great results. And while that is true, I went and looked on Social Blade. You can see people's followers and saw that there was just a few months, these like 6-month sprint where he had a couple of pieces go mega viral and it brought in the majority of his followers, something like 100,000 followers in 6 months. And then I started thinking about this article that I read some time ago called The Blockbuster Principle. And this article is really interesting. I'd recommend you go look at it. But he basically, so you can see in the headline how I went from 0 to 10 million views in 5 years. 10 million views nowadays with social media isn't that impressive. You can see it was written in 2021, and he's talking about articles. And so in his case, it is pretty impressive. And basically, it comes down to he would spend 50 hours or something on one article and just put the time in, make it excellent. And people could tell because the piece was so good that they would share it, and it's how it spread. There's that phrase, be so good that you can't fail. It's this idea, but for content. And so as I was thinking more about this idea, I thought, have I had any of those blockbuster pieces myself that have driven a ton of results? And the answer is yes. So you can see this thread that I wrote in 2021. What I did is I ended up spending something like 8 hours writing this, and I wrote 20 different hooks, and I ended up choosing this one, and I rewrote the piece several times. I edited it several times. I added images, made it as simple as possible, made it as catchy as possible, as pithy as possible, and as clear as possible. And after I posted it, I sent it to one person who had a large following, something like 200,000 followers. And I was very tactical about how I reached out to that person, and they left a comment on it. So what happened is for the first hour, it didn't really, maybe I got a couple of likes. At this time, I had 0 followers or like 50 followers. And then this person ends up just leaving a comment. They didn't retweet it. They just left a comment, and a few more people saw it, and they started engaging with it. And the engagement rate for this piece was super high. And in the next 24 hours, it got over 1 million impressions. That night, I went to a football game, and I looked up how many people were in that stadium. There were 60,000. I thought, wow, 20 of these stadiums saw my tweet today. And I went from 0 to about 3,000 followers in a period of 48 hours because of this one tweet. And it kind of blew my mind, but if I go look at all of the pieces that I've written, there's no other piece that's gotten me. I had one other piece that got me, another 2,000 followers, but all of my other followers have just come from consistently posting. It's just interesting to see that one piece can drive so many results. So it's true with followers, but is it true with leads? So I think there's definitely something to be said about just consistent posting and getting solid results over time. With that said, I do think implementing some blockbuster content into your strategy is a great way to improve on every metric. So I know that one of my clients, we had this piece. I can't show who it was just due to the nature of ghostwriting. But this one piece that had 294,000 impressions, it was perfectly in the client's target audience, and it drove hundreds of thousands of dollars of sales for a high-ticket service and SaaS company. And this is a perfect example of, yes, this also works for leads. If you have one piece that just hits with the right people, it can change your business and your life forever. Cool. So, blockbuster content. The case for blockbuster content is that one piece is greater than 100 mediocre pieces. And the thing is a blockbuster piece of content might take the time to write 10 mediocre pieces, but it has the results of 100 mediocre pieces. And so you get a ton of leverage, a 10x leverage, just by focusing on creating one awesome piece of content. So I'm going to just show you a couple of examples. One, Paul Graham, September 1st of 2024, he publishes this essay, Founder Mode. And he hits on a nerve that a lot of founders have had this idea, they just haven't put words to it. And this went insanely viral, got 21 million views among startup founders and business owners. And it's just been everywhere on the internet for the last 2 weeks. This is an example of a piece, and it doesn't have to necessarily be a long piece. It just has to be a novel idea, really interesting and well composed. And if you know Paul Graham, he is ruthless with his editing and rewriting of essays. He just eliminates words until it's like a mathematical algorithm where you can't prove it wrong. Another one, the Techno Optimist Manifesto. So in the last, 12 months, Marc Andreessen, he wrote this. And also another piece that just went super viral. Marc Andreessen spent a ton of time writing this and putting it together. I think it's something like 50 pages. It's awesome. Would highly recommend reading it. This is just another example. Okay, let's look at another one. $100 million Leads, Alex Hormozi. He spent 2 years writing for 6 hours a day, which that's actually a ridiculous amount of time. If you ever sit down to write for 6 hours, it's like that feels like a long time. Imagine doing that for 2 years. And this book, it's bulletproof. Like if you go read it, it just breaks down marketing and advertising in the most simple to understand way possible into its base units, its first principles thinking applied to marketing. And it's so powerful, and I think this will continue to sell for the next 300 years because he put so much time to making this great. So the point is, most big creators can point to just a couple of pieces that drove 50% plus of their followers, leads, and results. So if you look across almost any big account, there are just a few pieces that massively blew them up. So now let's get into how to write blockbuster content. So first thing, you have to come up with a topic. And so these are 3 things that I like to keep in mind when I am considering what to write about. So what's the purpose of the piece of content that I'm writing? Am I trying to go viral just to get followers? Am I trying to like get leads directly? Am I just trying to attract the right followers who can eventually become leads? What is the goal? Then who are you writing it for? So me personally, I write for B2B business owners. Like if I'm writing to them versus I'm writing to my mother, I'm going to write it in a very different way. And so you want to know who you're writing for, and then category. So the power of a personal brand isn't just that you are posting about your life or what you do. It's the association that you make with the category that you're a part of. And so in my case, I'm in the lead gen, specifically content marketing category. And so that's the category that I want to associate my content with. If I'm writing stuff about reading books, it doesn't necessarily relate to lead gen or content marketing. Even if it did go viral and I wrote a blockbuster piece, it probably wouldn't have any benefit to my business. So I like to have these 3 things in mind. I'd recommend that you do that as well. So in my case, my purpose, I want to get the right followers, so the people who will become buyers. I don't necessarily need the leads right now, but as long as they're the right people who I can build trust with over time, that's awesome. Who's it for? B2B business owners. That's my target audience. So those are the people I want to write to. And then my category is lead gen. So I just keep that in mind as I'm thinking through topic ideas. So now that you have a little bit of clarity about who you're writing for, what you want to do is you want to write something either novel or curate something interesting. So I'm going to go through both of those. Novel is the aha or the wow moments that you get. And you can get those in a lot of different cases. I'm going to walk you through 2 of them. So the first is, as you consume content, you're reading a book and there's just one idea that stands out to you. A lot of times these nonfiction books, they have like one big idea. That's like their novel content. So, Cal Newport with deep work. It's like that idea of deep work and no distractions, dialed in. That's his novel idea for that book. Atomic Habits is just creating these tiny habits that have atomic bomb effect on your life. So you just need one novel idea, and you can find those. Like, there's probably several novel ideas that you come across every week, and I highly recommend that you keep a note tab on your phone where you can just write those down, and you can refer to them later as you're thinking about content ideas you want to write about. So in my case, I'll give you a couple of examples. So I read Founder Mode by Paul Graham, and this was a feeling that I've had, but I've never put words to. So there's something interesting there. I watched this video by Matt Larson, how I grew my marketing agency from 0 to 900K per month in under 12 months. Obviously, that's a pretty remarkable feat. And after watching that video, this is the insight, the novel insight that I had. Agencies are scalable, and not just like Neil Patel, Gary Vee style agencies, but like anyone can scale an agency if they just do the right things, which felt like a unique novel insight to me. Another one, Nicholas Cole put out this YouTube video, how to outline a 60,000 word book in 24 minutes. I watched that, and I've thought about becoming an author at some point in the future, but this made it feel so tangible. And I could probably write a book. Like, I do a lot of writing, and I could probably do it like on the side, on the weekends, whatever, and it just seemed very approachable, and maybe I'll do it. Another one, George Mack, he was talking about becoming a high agency person. I've heard the word like be proactive a lot, and this is just another way of describing a high agency person, and it's something that I want to be. And he talked about having more intentionality, eliminating distractions, not waking up and checking your phone first thing in the morning, and some of that resonated to me. I know there's something novel there. Okay, the next way that you can come up with novel ideas is just looking at your either first, your last, your best, your worst, recent. You could apply a lot of different words to this, and then choosing some type of activity. So it could be a date, it could be your first business, it could be your first sale, it could be the most recent lead, it could be the last job you had, it could be the worst job you had. And then also finding those aha and interesting moments. So for example, I had a recent lead, and this lead was a perfect prospect, like big business owner. You would know them. Like, I'm pretty positive you would know who it is. And they were referred to me by another big business owner who I'd done great work for. And they said, hey, this is what I need help with. I've heard great things about you. Do you have capacity? And the thing is I'm focused on writing X and LinkedIn content for B2B business owners. And this person is a B2B business owner, but they wanted help with emails. And it doesn't seem maybe to you like that's a big difference, but let me tell you from experience, the context switching between emails and social content, very, very difficult. And I knew that my team isn't trained for emails, and this wouldn't be a job that I could take and hand it off to my team. I'd be doing it myself, and I think I could do a great job with it, but I had this question that hit me hard yesterday. I just thought, do I want to be a ghostwriter, or do I want to be a business owner? And if I want to be a ghostwriter, I would take that job. If I want to be a business owner, I wouldn't. And once I asked this, like with that level of clarity, I realized, you know what? I want to be a business owner. I don't want to be a ghostwriter. And so I politely declined and sent a referral to a friend. And this question was the novel insight for me. Next, so my first business that I started, my first real business, I had a couple of small side hustles. Like, the business model was super broken, and I learned from it. I think this would be an interesting topic to write about. My latest lead hopped on a sales call yesterday. They were a referral, and they'd consumed my content, and it was ridiculously easy to close them. Super smooth conversation. They were right in my target audience, and I just couldn't believe how simple it was. And it just goes to show, if you do good work and you post content and just show proof of what you're doing, man, makes sales so easy. One other is looking at the analytics of posts across all the clients that produce the most leads and noticing what that had in common. And that is proof. The posts that proved competence are the posts that drove the most leads. So there's something interesting there as well. Cool. Next, let's go to finding content to curate. So this is another great way to write blockbuster content. And the real value proposition with curated content is this. You trade your time now to save your audience time later. So some examples. I've consumed 1,000 hours of copywriting lessons. Here are the top 10 lessons in the next 10 minutes. And by the way, I prepped all of this right before doing this video. These are ideas that I actually like. These are all legitimate ideas. I'm not like BSing these. And I very well am going to like take a couple of these and I'm going to write blockbuster pieces on them, and I'll share how I do it along the way. Another one, I've spent 2 years learning B2B marketing on X and LinkedIn. These 7 resources will teach you all you need to know to get started. I recently landed a $100,000 client with free work. So this is all true. Free work is underrated. Here are 7 companies who have built billion-dollar companies off free work. I compile that list, I spend the time, I condense it down, and people can learn from it. I've spent $50,000 on courses and one-on-one coaching over the past 24 months. Avoiding these 13 mistakes have made it all worth it. You can see how for all of these, I'm condensing time, I'm condensing money that I've spent into very short, easy to consume pieces. That's the power of curation. So those are some examples. Now, let's get into the time component of blockbuster pieces of content. So let's just set some benchmarks. So we'll say the average tweet takes 5 minutes to write, usually 280 characters. The average LinkedIn post takes maybe 15 to 20 minutes to write. You can think of it like 4 tweets, or, maybe you're adding an image. Maybe it takes you a little bit of time to think about what you want to write, and then you write it. Some people edit, some people don't. Okay. And then the average long form or thread. So I consider it like a really long LinkedIn post that's in depth, or a carousel, or a Twitter thread / long form post that you put a little bit of time into. Maybe it's 30 minutes on the low end. Maybe it's 60 minutes on the higher end. I'd say that's pretty typical. Like after writing thousands of these myself, I'd say that's pretty typical. But a blockbuster piece, I want you to think of it as whatever the average is, I want you to spend 10 times the amount of time. You spend 10 times the amount of time and you'll get 100 times the result. Like that's the power of blockbuster content. So instead of spending 30 minutes on a piece, spend 300 minutes on a piece. And the way that you approach it is different. Like you can go and write 20 hooks and figure out, okay, which one works the best? You can send it to a friend and be like, hey, these are my 3 favorite hooks. Which one do you like the best? Which one is the most catching? And then you can start to, add images. What videos would make this piece better? What resources should I link to make this piece better? Can I condense this? Like, am I being too wordy here? Can I be more clear than I am? Basically, you just keep going through it until the piece is just as good as you can make it. And so, how often should you do blockbuster pieces? I think definitely keep that consistency going. So if you can have stuff scheduled out for the next week or the next 2 weeks and then spend time just creating one blockbuster piece, that's the ideal scenario. So me personally, I want to get to the point where I'm writing one of these a week. Right now, I am not there because I'm busy like running my business. But can you do one of these per month? These are the things that'll, skyrocket your... I actually hate that word. I feel like everyone with AI uses that, so I'm not going to say skyrocket anymore, but these can really compound your results. You can see just a massive bump in either followers, leads, impressions, whatever you're going for by doing a couple of these blockbuster pieces. So how do you know when it's done? When you can't improve it anymore. You basically have said, this is the best that I can make it. You can go through it again. You read it out loud and you say, can I do anything to make this better? And your honest answer is no, I can't. So a couple things to think about. Are there any videos that I could add that would make this better? Are there any images I could add that would make this better? Are there people I should tag who might share it? Who, I'm getting ideas from them, and because this piece is so good, they might share it. Am I cutting out any unnecessary words? Have I read it aloud? Because when you read things aloud, you oftentimes catch where a sentence isn't smooth and doesn't make sense, where you would get caught up, and you can fix those things. So those are just a few things I would think about when you're creating these blockbuster pieces of content. And that's what it looks like. That's how to create it. I am going to go and create one of these pieces, and I'm going to continue to share the journey here on YouTube. And then we'll see how it does. Sometimes, just the truth, like every time you go and post a piece of content, it's like you're swinging the bat. Sometimes you hit home runs, sometimes you miss. And when you write these blockbuster pieces, you're just getting a ball that's right in your strike zone. So the chances that you hit it further and have a home run just go way up. And so I'm going to do it. I'll share the results as well. I'll probably choose one of these ideas that I wrote about right here. Maybe I'll choose multiple of them, and I'll spend something like 4, 5, 6 hours just really refining a piece of content, making sure the hook is awesome, and then we'll see how it does. So I would encourage you to do the same. I've seen this drive millions of dollars of sales from my clients, drive a lot of followers, a lot of email subscribers. This is a content strategy that I promise you is worth doing. Thanks.